to another Q&A in the SENsible SENCO series. So this week we are looking at the question, can I stop being a SENCO? What an interesting question. Why would you want to stop being a SENCO? I imagine there's lots of reasons. So I'm not going to go into those. They are personal to you as to whether you want to be a SENCO and continue being a SENCO. You have a couple of options. The first one is basically asking the question, can I give up the SENCO role? And the answer to that is it will depend on your contract. So if you have been employed as the school's SENCO, you may find that your job is tied to that role. So there isn't an option to give up the SENCO-ness and just be a class teacher in the school. On the other hand, you may have been employed as a teacher and taken on the responsibility of the SENCO, in which case there is a possibility you might be able to relinquish the SENCO role and just be kept on as a class teacher. Of course, recognising that that possibly has some financial repercussions for yourself, but has a lifestyle implication as well. It also depends on what your school says, because some schools will say, hold on a minute, you're trained, you're the person that knows the children, that knows the families, knows what's going on, we don't have anybody else, no, you can't give it up. Some schools have paid for your training, so they are going to want to use you for that, and they're not going to want to put somebody else through that training course because they'll have to pay for it again. So, can you give up being the SENCO? Yes, you can, but it will depend on your contract and what your school says. Another option, redundancy. Now, I can give a personal story around redundancy. I was made voluntarily redundant. When I say that, I was basically told, you will take redundancy voluntarily, or you won't get a payout. I went for the payout. My school managed to justify it because the SENCO role wasn't disappearing. That's a statutory role, that isn't going anywhere. But my school managed to justify it by saying, we are going to restructure our leadership team and somebody else in the leadership team is going to take on the SEN responsibility. And eventually we'll do the NASENCO award. So you could, if your school is offering redundancies, you could opt to take a voluntary redundancy or a redundancy package and leave in that way. But you would do that anyway if you wanted to leave teaching, so that doesn't really have anything to do with stopping being a SENCO, I suppose. Okay. Your third option is to move onward and upward. So some people use the SENCO role as a stepping stone into senior leadership and into head teacher posts. Some people will use it as a stepping stone to be able to move to their local authority to go and work for them in some capacity. So can you stop being a SENCO within your own school? Yes, that's entirely possible. You could be the SENCO on an assistant head teacher post perhaps, and you are offered the opportunity to take on deputy head teacher or even the head teacher's role, and you're probably going to give up the SENCO post at that point. However, I'd like to think that you're going to be the mentor for whoever it is that's taking it over and supporting them with that. Finally, the other way to stop being a SENCO is to leave teaching and take up an entirely different role. So I just suggested there that you might go and work for the local authority, so you could still have that SEN type role, working perhaps with the HCPs or going to work for the advisory services. But we know that local authorities are struggling with funding as much as schools are, so those roles are few and far between at the moment. You could find yourself working in the charity sector, you could find yourself working with other companies that offer support to schools and students. Or you could find yourself doing something entirely different. So I work for a software company. a software company that uses my skills as a SENCO because their software is for SENCOs and they want that advisory capacity in there. I also do work for publishing companies, so they've written books that are for SEN purposes and they want those to be proofread by a SENCO to find out whether or not they've pitched it correctly. I have another company based over in Ireland who send me their resources and they say, can we use these resources that we've created for a mainstream environment perhaps? Can we use them with SEN pupils? Can we pitch it for that? And I go through them and say, well, actually, no, you can't because they're too bright or there's too much clutter on them or whatever. So there's lots and lots of different opportunities that use my SENCO skills, but without me being a SENCO in a school.